What's up, guys? You are watching Fite Feed, and it is finally time. We've got Dricus du Plessis versus Khamzat Chimaev coming up on August 16th in my original hometown of Chicago, Illinois at the United Center. One of the biggest fights of this new generation of MMA. Super exciting. I cannot fucking wait for this fight, guys. I hope you guys are just as excited as I am. In this video, I'm going to be going through my entire picks, predictions for this full card of UFC 319. Before we dive into my picks, a quick message from our sponsor. If you aren't subscribed to Fight Feed, fuck you! All right, guys, I have the first fight of 319 pulled up here. We've got Karine Silva versus Dione Barboza. And guys, before I do the down and dirty on this fight, I'm just going to give you guys a quick list of what I felt were locks on this card in terms of, the picks that were a lot easier for me to make versus the hard picks. And then we'll explain as we go through the video why I feel this way. So my locks or easy decisions were Silva, Ruziboev, Hooper, Godinez, Page, Prates, and Murphy. And my hard picks were Michal, Oleksiejczuk, Diego Ferreira, Kai Asakura, and Dricus. So, looking at the tail of the tape for Dione Barboza versus Karine Silva, 33 years old for Barboza, 5'6", 66.5-inch reach, 8-3, 2-1 in the UFC. Karine Silva, 31, 5'5", 67-inch reach. Karine Silva might be 5'9" with her beautiful hair. I actually do like her hair. It's nice. Her and Angela Hill, actually, if you guys see online, there's like a picture of Angela Hill on the UFC site where literally her hair, she had it all the way out to here and it went off the screen. It's awesome. She's 18-5 with a 4-1 record. Taking a look at the styles for Dione Barboza and Karine Silva. So really, when you look at this, both of these women are grappling heavy approach type fighters. Barboza's 50% of her wins are by submission. She's got good grappling. Karine Silva, 50% of her wins by submission. But she also has a 44% of her wins by KO. Now, some weaknesses that I would call out for both of these women. Barboza has some losses to lower tier opponents, in my opinion. And then on the side of Silva, also has a loss to Viviane Araujo, who we just saw get bullied and the shit kicked out of by Tracy Cortez. So not a very good look when you consider that it happened not too long ago. Looking at the momentum check, and this is where I mean it didn't happen too long ago, Karine Silva last fought 11/16/2024, and that's when Viviane Araujo was able to get that win over her. Now looking at Dione Barboza, she last fought 4/5/25. She got a win over Belbita on that card. That was the Josh Emmett Murphy card. So taking a look at their last four fights, you've got Belbita, a win over Belbita for Barboza, a loss to Miranda Maverick, a win over Karikate, if you guys don't know her, she's had a couple wins over a few women in this division in other promotions, I think, and also in the UFC. So Karikate's one of those trickier fighters, I think, when you consider she's got wins over some I guess better opponents. I think she has a win over Melissa Mullins. I can't remember 1,000% though. And then a win over Guerrero. Now on the side of Silva, a loss to Araujo, a win over De Silva, a win over Moroz, and a win over Sousa. Taking a look at intangibles and X factors. Really nothing to write home about here, guys, so I'm not even going to waste a lot of time here. I think the only pressure is on Silva for her to obviously get a bounce back win. I am going Silva in this fight just because I think when you look at her record and her stats, not only does she have that grappling threat, she has more opportunities on the feet, I think, to get the win here, and that is ultimately why I just decided to go with her. I think she can mix it up better than Barboza. Decision is likely the finish here of the fight, not a finish, but a decision, and it's 3 out of 5 confidence. Looking at the next fight, Bryan the Butcher battle versus Nursoltan Ruziboev. So tail of the tape for this, Bryan battles 30, 6'1", 77-inch reach. That's a very good reach, guys. That's 6 inches taller than his height, if I'm not mistaken. No, because 6'1", 73, 4 inches. So still solid. 185 pounds though. 12-2 record, 7-1 in the UFC. Nursoltan, 31 years old, 6'5", 76-inch reach. So he's going to have a disadvantage in the reach department. 36-9, 4-1 in the UFC. Styles for this fight. So looking at Bryan Battle specifically, 42% of his wins by submission, 33% of his wins by KO. Some weaknesses that some more to add on the strength side of Bryan Battle. He is a scrapper. He's been, especially in the welterweight division, proven that, he can take a little bit of damage to give his own damage, which we see quite a bit in his fights against the Kevin Jousset when he did the whole, y'all thought Battle we're going to lose to a Frenchie. Jousset was landing on Bryan Battle, but Bryan Battle kind of used that as motivation to just beat the shit out of Jousset, which was a great win for Bryan Battle. But some weaknesses there, though, is that he can be very open on the feet to counters. And also his grappling is not very good when it's on the ground. Like, if you guys watch his one loss in the UFC was against Ferretinkinov or whatever is Renat Ferretinkinov. And Ferretinkinov just big brothered him the whole time on the ground. Pretty boring performance, not on the side of Bryan Battle. He just couldn't handle that pressure in dominant wrestling. Now, I don't think he has to deal with that in this fight against Nursoltan. Nursoltan is a striker. So looking at his strengths, 56% of his wins are by subs, though, which is shocking because all we've really seen from Nursoltan in the UFC thus far is a striking heavy approach. 36% of his wins by KO. What I would say about Nursoltan, he's also proven to be a bit open on the feet. He has gotten caught, like in the Stoltzfus fight, he was getting caught by Stoltzfus in some counters, and some heavy counters at that. Like, I think Stoltzfus actually stumbled him a couple times, but he's a very crisp, long striker, has a KO win over Bruno Ferreira, which is a really good win. Like, if you really look at who that guy's lost to, like, he's a good fighter. Taking a look at the momentum for Bryan Battle and Nursoltan Ruziboev. 4-win streak for Bryan Battle. He last fought on December 4, 2024. He got a win, split decision win over Randy Brown. A lot of people felt that he didn't deserve that. I think he won it, but it was not the best performance. A win over Kevin Jousset. Basically a win over Ange Lusa, but it was a no contest because Ange Lusa quit. And then a win over Fletcher. Now looking at Nursoltan, 2-win streak for him. Last fought on May 17, 2025. He got a win over Stoltzfus. And then before that, a win over Mikoniko, who just won last night against Cody Brundage. A loss to Buckley at 170. And then a win over Bontgang Dumas. Intangibles and X Factors. So neither one of these guys is the home fighter here. What I would say is that Bryan Battle is going to want to make a statement and have a statement win after his last performance, because his last performance was not the best performance of his career, obviously. A lot of people did not like his approach against Randy Brown. There will be a red flag here that I have to call for Bryan Battle, is that he's going to be significantly smaller than Nursoltan Ruziboev, and that is something that I worry about with him in this fight. Looking at Nursoltan Ruziboev, not the home fighter, like I said, but taking a look at some of the pressure here, he's not super pressured in this fight because he does have a small win streak, pulled together here. So even if he were to lose, it's not detrimental, I don't think. But there is a bit of pressure because he is allowing Bryan Battle to do his debut at the middleweight division here. And so I think he's going to want to show out and just prove that, hey, look, dude, this ain't the division for you, right? So there is that pressure. I'm going Nursoltan Ruziboev, guys, and the reason I'm doing that, I just think that although he has less UFC experience, he has significant fight experience. Looking at his record, 36 and something. He's got a lot of fights under his belt, and I feel like not only that, I think he's going to have a significant size advantage. Bryan Battle is only 6'1" to a 6'5" frame of Nursoltan Ruziboev. Now, reach is obviously smaller on the side of Nursoltan, but Nursoltan, I think, just being 6'5" is probably going to carry more weight and probably will fill out more on the night of. And I think Bryan Battle, although I think he actually competed in the middleweight division for Tough. Just giving you guys some perspective, when he did compete, I think the closest opponent skill-wise was Tresean Gore to Bryan Battle in that competition at 185. I just don't think he's actually had to fight a guy that's much bigger than him, especially in the UFC yet. And that is what is going to happen here. Now, I do like Bryan Battle. I'm a big fan. I would like to see him get the win. I actually might be rooting for him, but I do see Nursoltan just being able to Stay on the outside, land some crispy 1-2s down the pipe, maybe hurt him on the feet. I see it going to decision, and I have a 4 out of 5 confidence. Jumping into the next fight. Fight number 3. Drakkar Klose. Drakkar, I can't let you get close. Even though that's Jeremy Stephens, right? Because Jeremy Stephens fucking broke his neck when he pushed him. And then we've got Edson Barbose, as Lucas Tracy would say. Taking a look at Drakkar. 37 years old, 5'9", 70-inch reach. Fighting at 155 pounds, 15-3 record, 9-3 in the UFC. So a lot of UFC experience there for Drakkar Klose. Edson Barbose, 39 years old, 5'11", 75-inch reach, 24-12, 18-12 in the UFC. Dude, it's crazy that Barboza, like being the world beater he was at one point, he's now a 50-50 record. That's crazy. That's stupid. Jumping into the styles for this fight. Looking at Drakkar Klose, 40% of his wins by KO, 60% of his wins by decision. So Drakkar Klose grappling and wrestling style is likely to be the culprit for why he has these decision wins. And I think that is exactly the approach that he will take in this fight. He might try to stand with Barbose a little bit, but the odds are he's landing some heavy shots and getting those takedowns off and then just trying to wear on Barbose as the fight goes on. What I would call as a weakness for Drakkar Klose, bad KO in his last fight. Joel Alvarez beat the shit out of him in his last fight. Taking a look at Edson Barbose, his strengths, 54% of his wins by KO. He is a fantastic striker. We've seen some of the best highlight reel KOs in the UFC history from Barboza. Some spinning wheel kick KOs, spinning heel kick KOs. He has 30 UFC fights as well. So that is all going to play into this fight, obviously. Weaknesses, though. Barboza does not do well with grapplers. Like, he did do well against some grapplers, but generally those types of styles, like Khabib style, anyone who's got a little bit of strength to them and grappling prowess, somehow they just melt Edson Barboza. And I would say one more thing that's a weakness is he just hasn't fought at lightweight in a while. And now that he's a bit older, I think that there's still going to be that significant strength advantage on the side of someone who has been fighting at lightweight compared to that at featherweight. And he did get manhandled by Lerone Murphy, who's a smaller guy compared to what you would see at lightweight, in my opinion. Momentum check. So Drakkar Klose coming off a loss, so is Barboza. Drakkar Klose last fought on December 14, 2024, where he got KO'd by Alvarez, Joel Alvarez, not Eddie. A win over Silva before that, a win over Selecki before that, and a win over Garcia before that. So none of those guys really are even close to that level of Barboza, in my opinion. Barboza last fought on May 18, 2024, so quite some time ago, over a year ago. He lost to Lerone Murphy in a pretty dominant win on the side of Murphy. A win over Sadiq Youssef, a win over Quarantillo before that, a loss to Mitchell before that. So he even got manhandled by Bryce Mitchell, who's now fighting at bantamweight. So that is, I'm calling that out because Bryce Mitchell's a great grappler, but when you consider that strength advantage of someone at lightweight, right? Intangibles and X factors. So I would say, Drakkar Klose, he's not the home fighter coming out of Phoenix, actually. He fights out of Glendale and he trains at MMA Lab. So not too far, only about 30 minutes from where I'm at right now. Pressure, though, for Klose is that he had a bad loss in his last outing. He's going to want to bounce back and get a chance to put his name potentially to be just outside the rankings, maybe at lightweight. I don't even know if he'll make it to the rankings. He's 37. So, that's another thing in this fight. Age is not necessarily a factor here. Both men are older. Barboza, though, not the home fighter, but he has pressure because he's 39. So he needs to have a good performance because if not, if he gets dominated, this could be a situation of Dana White saying, yeah, I think it's time for him to call it, right? Red flag, final red flag, call out for Barbose. He just does not historically do that well with grapplers, guys, and that is why I decided to go with Drakkar Klose in this fight. And it's funny because I didn't put this down, but this was a hard pick for me, mainly because I feel like I've had two visions of this fight. I've had the vision where Drakkar Klose somehow just manhandles Edson Barboza and wins a pretty dominant decision that way. But then I've also had a vision of Barboza just clipping him, hurting Klose, maybe making Klose be on the back foot, and then winning a decision that way, or even had a vision of Barbose clipping Klose and knocking him out. I feel like the likely event to occur here because Drakkar Klose has been hurt in other fights where he was able to still snatch a takedown. I feel like the likely thing to happen is Klose gets the grappling off early, gets the clinch game. This is the MMA lab. We did see Mario Bautista do this. He has that ability to also clinch against the cage and land shots that way. I'm not super confident in my pick. I just think that is likely what's going to happen. I think that Klose is going to have like that prime lightweight strength that Edson Barboza probably has, but just is not used to from a grappling perspective. And I think it's just going to be a reminder to him why he dropped down to the lower weight division. Because obviously Barbose dropped down, guys, after having struggles with guys like Khabib and some of those stronger grapplers in the lightweight division. Fight number 4 on the card. We've got Alex Hernandez versus Chase Hooper. I'm actually, guys, believe it or not, I'm a big fan of both these guys. I've always liked Hernandez, even though he got fraud checked and just completely humiliated by Cowboy Cerrone. That was a great moment in UFC history. But I still like Hernandez. I think that he is a very skilled fighter. And so this will be a fun fight. Alex Hernandez, 32 years old, 5'9", 72-inch reach, 155 pounds, 16-8 with an 8-7 record in the UFC. Chase Hooper, 25 years old, 6'1", 74-inch reach, 15-3 record, 8-3 in the UFC. Fun fact about Chase Hooper, guys, I don't have a picture of my dad when he was like 18, but Chase Hooper looks like he looks a lot like my dad when he was younger. So like I've always made and funny, my dad's 6'1" as well, so like I just find that hilarious. Styles for this fight. Alex Hernandez, 38% of his wins are by KO. He's notably known for his big KO win over Beneil Dariush on a short notice debut against Beneil Dariush. Comes out there and starches him. Very powerful striking, very quick. His style is like kind of like a mix of very good kickboxing with a little bit of Muay Thai as well, because I know he does train out of a Muay Thai gym. I would say he's also a big component of Hernandez's game is explosive striking, very explosive, has that ability to put someone's lights out if he lands flush. Now, weaknesses, though, is that I think because he is an explosive striker, he seems to wither as the fights go on. And we've seen him lose a lot of fights, actually, just by the fact that he'll be winning for the first couple rounds. And as that third round peaks on, like I think his loss to Quarantillo was a big factor in that. He just gassed out and got caught and fucked up. Now, Hooper, on the other hand, 50% of his wins by submission, 25% of his wins by KO, and he's a very, very good, crafty grappler with some of the craziest, like, dexterity, the ability to flow like water on the ground. Like, Chase Hooper is one of my favorite fighters to watch, especially from a grappling perspective, because he doesn't have a boring grappling style, in my opinion. I think he has at times he can do the grinding type style where he's, grinding them out, tiring them out. But mostly he's hunting for subs. He doesn't really like to play the game of just laying on top of his opponent. He's always throwing up submissions while flowing from his opponent's submissions. Like in the Jim Miller fight, Jim Miller was attacking stuff too, so they were flowing a bit. In this fight, I think it's going to be Alex Hernandez who's just playing defensive there. And I feel like Hooper could potentially hurt him on the feet and then get him, once they're on the ground, just flow and find a submission. Weaknesses for Chase Hooper, though. This hasn't shown too much of itself in his recent fights because I think since he's gone up to lightweight, he has gotten a lot better at striking. He's increased his ability on the feet and increased his defensive awareness on the feet. He's got his hands up higher. But a lot of times his chin can be up in the air, especially as the fight gets later. And that is going to be a big no-no against Alex Hernandez. Looking at the momentum check, Alex Hernandez, 2 fights, win streak. He beat a couple Unks, Hubbard and Hollabaugh. 3-15-25 is when he last fought. Win over Hollabaugh, win over Hubbard. Lost to Damon Jackson, and I lost to Bill Algeo before that. Chase Hooper, 5-fight win streak, last fought on the Volk card when Volk fought Diego Lopez. He got a win over Jim Miller, a win over Clay Guida, a win over Borshev, and a win over Jordan Levitt. Intangibles and X factors, so neither guy is the home fighter here. Alex Hernandez is going to want to keep building on that win streak, so there's a bit of pressure there. And I think for Chase Hooper, there's more pressure given that he's got a 5-fight win streak and the opportunity to start to break into that mold of the lightweight rankings here. If he gets a good, solid performance and win over Hernandez, I am going Chase Hooper, guys, is one of my locks. I just think that although Hernandez has explosive striking, I don't think he'll be able to match the tricky striking that Chase Hooper brings, and then on top of that, that grappling prowess that Chase Hooper brings. I see Hernandez getting subbed in this fight, and I'm honestly 3.5 out of 5, more like a 4 out of 5, I'd say, confidence-wise. Next fight on the card, this is fight number 5. We've got Jessica Andrade versus Poopy Godinez. Now, we call her Poopy because of what happened back in Mexico City, guys. Jessica Andrade, 33, 5'1", 62-inch reach, 26-14, 17-12 in the UFC. Poopy Godinez is 31, 5'2", 61-inch reach, 13-5 with an 8-5 record in the UFC. Styles for this fight, we've got Jessica Andrade. She's a power puncher. She's part of that Brazilian variant, if you know what I'm saying. 38% of her wins by KO, 31% of her wins by submission. It's a pretty big finisher here. Weaknesses for Andrade. Like a lot of the other Brazilian variants that are similar to Jessica Andrade, she wings her fucking hooks with her chin right here. It's like this. Just like Chris Cyborg. Like they throw, it's like if they throw the hook as though like they're getting a fucking profile mugshot. Like that. And you know what's crazy too? When they throw these hooks, it's like, you would think that they throw it and that they think their chin moving with them gives them more power somehow. I don't know. But that is a big no-no. Not necessarily against Poopy Godinez. I don't think Poopy's going to catch her and hurt her. Could happen. Another weakness I call out for Andrade, she seems to have trouble with fast-paced fighters, especially those who are mixing in the grappling. We've seen that in the last few fights of hers. Except against Mackenzie Dern, she was able to catch her. Now, looking at Poopy, Poopy's a grinder type style. She is the type to just be in your face, pull you down, beat you up on the ground, take you back up, beat you up on the feet, put you against the cage, bring you down. Like, she is nonstop action, basically, the entire time. She does get a bit tired. We did see her get tired a little bit in her last fight, but she did, as she said, she almost pooped her pants, so it is what it is. Mixes in the grappling really well, I think, and I think she just has a lot more ways to mix it up. What I would say for weaknesses on Poopy Godinez is she just lacks some of that finishing power on the feet, in my opinion. Momentum check. So, Andrade is coming off 2 losses. Last fought May 10th, 2025. She got smoked by Jez Davicius. Before that, she lost to Silva. A win over Rodriguez before that, and a win over Dern before that. Great win over Dern, by the way. Poopy, on the other hand, 1 fight win streak. Last fought on March 29, 2025, a win over Palestri. Before that, lost to Dern. Before that, lost to Jandiroba. And before that, she beat Tabitha Ricci. Intangibles and X factors, neither one of them is the home fighter. I would say that there is pressure on both sides. Jessica Andrade is going to need a win here, or she's going to be on a 3-fight skid. And then Poopy, on the other hand, is going to need a win here so she can keep building the streak that she's currently on. I think that would be great for her if she's able to do so. The pick is Poopy Godinez, guys. I just think that her ability to mix things up, not only on the feet, but on the ground, and have a fast-paced fight is going to pay dividends. And I think it's going to really just kind of melt Jessica Andrade, is how I see this happening. I see it going to decision, 4 out of 5 confidence. Fight number 6 on the card. I think this is fight number 6. Fight number 6 on the card, Gerald GM3 Meerschaert versus Michal Oleksiejczuk. So, Gerald Meerschaert, one of the unks of the middleweight division. Big fan of Gerald Meerschaert fighting out of Milwaukee. I love this guy. I really do. Like, one of my favorite fighters, to be honest with you guys. Like, Meerschaert is that dude. 37 years old, 6'1", 77.5-inch reach. So, very good reach for Meerschaert, actually. 37-19 record, 12-11 in the UFC. Michal Oleksiejczuk is 30 years old, 6 foot tall, 74-inch reach, 20-9, 8-7 in the UFC. The styles for this fight. So we already know Gerald Meerschaert's a motherfucking dog, boys. This guy is so fucking scrappy, guys. Like, for real. 78% of his wins by sub, which is crazy because when you think about 78% of his wins, he's got 37 wins. So that's a fuck ton by submission. 3rd place in submission wins in UFC history. So he's like, if he gets another few subs, guys, he actually will be, he'll be ahead of everybody. He's like literally going to hold a record in the UFC maybe. Weaknesses for Gerald Meerschaert is he's not the best striker. He does have a bit of an awkward style though that I think gives problems to some of the classical strikers. He beat the hell out of Reinier de Ritter before Reinier was able to choke him out. Like, it was a very close fight. I would say another weakness is he has a tendency to get caught on the feet, which is not a good sign against a guy like Michal Oleksiejczuk, who's got crispy boxing, that crispy Polish Soviet type boxing style. And then another weakness is that he's got a very low takedown accuracy, 31%. But it's not the worst, because I think the way that he throws takedowns together is just kind of like, I'm going to make you think I'm taking you down, but then throw strikes. So it's almost to mix in the striking. Michal Oleksiejczuk, on the other hand, 75% of his wins by KO. So he is a very good stand-up type fighter looking to knock you out. He's a great striker, is some notes I have. Very good boxing. I love the way he mixes in his body shots. It's very beautiful the way he's able to throw those combinations together. Some weaknesses is that he also is not the best at grappling, but he has a bad takedown defense of only 48%, which tells me this is, guys, why I was talking about this being a hard pick, because the way I see this fight playing out, honestly, if Michal Oleksiejczuk wasn't training with the Fighting Nerds, I would have picked Gerald Meerschaert. That is why I picked that's why I picked Michal Oleksiejczuk, solely off the fact that Michal has like fully transitioned to training with the Fighting Nerds. So that means he's getting grappling time with Kyle Bahalio. And that to me says like, you're going to have enough skills there if you're working on that to fend off any threat on the ground really from Gerald. But there's still that chance. Momentum check. Gerald's coming off of 2 losses. Michal's coming off of a win. Gerald last fought on 4/5/2025, whereas Michal fought a week later on the Volt card where he beat up Boont Gang. Gerald Meerschaert lost to Tavares and he lost to RDR. Close fights, though. Like, he did put up a good fight against both these guys. I thought he was going to beat RDR, in my opinion. He got a win over Shabazian before that. Fucking amazing win by Gerald Meerschaert. What a fucking guy. And he took the bonus and he literally split the bonus he won for that with his coaches. What a stand-up dude. And a win over Barbarena before that. Michal got a win over Boont Gang, as I said. Made Boont Gang have to go commit a couple other armed robberies, unfortunately. Lost to Shara Bullet, lost to Kevin Holland, and lost to Michel Pereira before that. So he snapped a 3-fight losing skid. Intangibles and X factors. So what I would say is Gerald Meerschaert is the home fighter here. He's coming from Wisconsin, so he's right there. He's going to be the hometown hero. Not really for Chicagoans. I mean, I feel like even though I'm from like the Midwest and from the Chicagoland area, I feel like a lot of Chicagoans don't really get behind their people, guys. Like, I feel like if there was a Chicago fighter, they probably would, but like I feel like they'll be like, nah, you fucking suck. Like, I don't know. It's just how I feel. Pressure is that Gerald Meerschaert's going to want to get a win, so he's not on a 3-fight losing streak. And I said red flags here is that I don't think he's going to be able to hang with Michal on the feet for too long. Now, Michal, on the other hand, he's not the home fighter. Does have some pressure, though, because he's coming off of, that 3-fight skid before his last win. And he's got Gerald Meerschaert, who, although is a bit older, is a scrappy veteran. So he's going to want to get a big win here if he can. Red flags for Michal is I'm worried about that ground game and grappling threat of Gerald. But like I said, because he's fighting with the Fighting Nerds, I ended up going with Michal because I feel like Michal has all the striking prowess to beat Gerald. But I think having those rounds with very good grapplers in the minds of like Kyle Bahalio is going to play a huge role and pay a lot of dividends for Michal, in my opinion. I feel like because of that, he'll be able to stop that grappling threat and probably find a KO shot, getting a win over Gerald. I will be rooting. I'm sorry, Michal, but I got to root for my boy, Gerald Meerschaert. I love the guy. 3 out of 5 confidence. I think Michal gets it done. Fight number 7 on the card, Diego Ferreira versus King Green. We got a motherfucking unk matchup in lightweight. Diego Ferreira is 40 years old, 5'9", 74-inch reach, 19-6 record, 10-6 in the UFC. King Green, 38 years old, 5'10", 71-inch reach, 32-12, 13-12 in the UFC. Taking a look at Diego Ferreira's strengths, 37% of his wins by submission, 26% of his wins by KO. So he's pretty well balanced there, has the ability to finish in both areas. What I would say his weakness is he can be caught with strikes on the feet quite a bit, and I think you see that a lot more often when he's up against a guy who's a fast striker like Michael Johnson. He did get that flatline KO over Michael Johnson. Michael Johnson was piecing him the fuck up, though, when they fought. Like, if you go back and watch that fight, Michael Johnson won round 1 and pieced him up with fast combos. And that's something that I worry about here. Because you got King Green, who's 34% of his wins by KO, 28% of his wins by sub. So they're both pretty well-rounded. But Bobby Green is a very fast, elusive type striker. Weaknesses, though, is he gets caught because his hands are down by his fucking hips. So he gets caught with shit. So that's a weakness for Bobby Green. King Green. Taking a look at the momentum, Diego Ferreira has one loss. Last fought on January 18, 2025. And I remember he kind of got melted by Grant Dawson, just had no answers. Before that, a win over Raumbetsky, which is a big win. A win over Michael Johnson before that, which was also a big win. A loss to Gamrot prior to that for Diego Ferreira. King Green, on the other hand, 2 losses, as I mentioned. He last fought on March 8, 2025. And unfortunately, King Green is the reason why our friend Mauricio Ruffy is currently super overrated in the UFC because he got knocked out by a spinning wheel kick. Paddy Pimblett was his loss before that, where he just handed his neck over and let him choke him out. Then a win over Jim Miller and a loss to Jalen Turner before that. Intangibles and X factors. Neither one of these guys is the home fighter. I think that Diego Ferreira is going to have a little bit of pressure, going to want to get back in that win column. Red flag is how's he going to handle the speed of Bobby Green? That's a big question I have. Bobby Green, as I mentioned, King Green, Bobby, whatever the fuck you want to call him, not the home fighter. He does have pressure, guys. He needs a win here. He's going to be on a 3-fight skid. Some red flags, damage that he's taken in the last 2 years. I mean, that Jalen Turner fight probably knocked a few years off this man's life. Then that spinning wheel kick KO, like he's been hurt pretty bad. And that's worrisome against a guy like Diego Ferreira who flatline KO'd Michael Johnson in one shot. Now, if you want to play MMA math, some other variables, King Green literally jab KO'd Grant Dawson, who melted Diego Ferreira. So if you want to play MMA math, you can. I'm not doing that. I had to go with Diego Ferreira. I just think Diego Ferreira has a stronger level of durability, meaning that although if Bobby's fast, can Bobby eat the shot that Diego returns with? And that is one that I'm not really sure on. That's why if you guys look at my method, I said decision or KO. I could see a decision on the side of either man, to be honest. I think that if Diego, it could go, and I've had visions of both things, guys, where Ferreira goes out there, starches Bobby out. But I've also seen a few in my head where Ferreira is just kind of on the back foot, can't seem to get the range just right because Bobby's in and out, fast movement, dropping the head, doing the Muhammad Ali stuff that he does, landing all kinds of fucking crispy combos, not really hurting Ferreira, but stinging him a little bit and just making him second guess and winning a decision. But I think that it's likely that Ferreira's power is the outlier here where he could clip Bobby and make it really just change the course of the fight based on that. 3 out of 5 confidence. Jumping into what I believe is now fight number 8 on the card. We got Kai Asakura versus the Goblin Tim Elliott. I fucking love Tim Elliott. Guys, this is one of my hard picks on the card. Asakura is 31 years old, 5'8", 69-inch reach, 21-5 record, 0-1 in the UFC. Tim Elliott, 38 years old, 5'7", 66-inch reach, 20-13, 9-11 in the UFC. The styles for this fight, Kai Asakura is a knockout artist. 62% of his wins by a KO. Very flashy, dynamic striker on the feet. We've seen all the highlights. They fucking rammed down our throat against when he went up against Pantoja. We saw what Pantoja did. He got mauled by Pantoja, and that's the only weakness I'd call out for Kai Asakura. Kai Asakura has also been knocked out in the other promotions, so you have to keep that in mind as well. Now, the strengths for Tim Elliott. He's got that Goblin Dan Hendo type style where he's just like an awkward, like, just fucking, dude, it's a weird style that works. 35% of his wins are by submission, 15% of his wins by KO. Somewhat of a decision guy, but very crafty, okay? Weaknesses for Tim Elliott is... A weakness for Tim Elliott that I called out is that age is going to play a big factor in this fight, I think, especially given the layoff from Tim Elliott. And we're going to say that next slide here. Kai Asakura is coming off of 1 loss. He lost to Pantoja, so that's actually aged pretty well because Pantoja's a fucking monster. Last fought December 7th, 2024. He had that loss to Pantoja, win over Archuleta, a win over Matoya, a loss to Oji Kubo, all guys from Risen, I believe. Now, Elliott, on the other hand, coming off of a win, which is shocking. He had a submission win over Sumaderji, but he hasn't fought since 12/9/2023, which is almost 2 years ago. And he's 37 years old, 38 years old. Now, before Sumudaerji, he lost to Mokaev, but he had a win over Altamirano and a win over Ulanbekov before that. So Elliott now hasn't been very active, but he has been actively knocking off a lot of these prospects, okay? Like a win over Ulanbekov is a big win. A win over Altamirano, also a big win. A win over Sumudaerji, also a big win. Intangibles, the X factor. So Kai Asakura is not the home fighter. He needs a statement win here because he had so much hype coming into the UFC. I feel like he has to get a statement win for people to really buy in. Red flags, he has bad grappling defense in his last fight, guys. Like, he got manhandled by Pantoja. Now, Elliott is no Pantoja, I don't think, but he is awkward enough to where I think he could pose a lot of issues. He's somewhat of a home fighter. I think he's fighting out of Kansas City, so he's like right there kind of. And I would say pressure due to age. Like, if Tim Elliott goes out there and gets smoked out, he might just be forced to retire. I don't know. I don't think he's in that spot, though. I think he's had good performances, and he's got more wins than losses in his last 4. He just hasn't fought in almost 2 years. So, guys, this one I had a hard one. I had a really hard time with because although I've had 2 visions for this one. I've had a vision of Kai Asakura landing a crazy flying knee that just folds Tim Elliott, and that's the fight. But then I've also had a vision of Tim Elliott doing the Goblin style weird striking where he's like snatching a leg but throwing an overhand at the same time and just like wearing on Kai Asakura and almost big brothering him with the wrestling, getting a dominant decision win. Like that, or even like a split decision win. But I've had 2 visions. So you guys take what you will from those visions. But I actually have to go with Asakura here, guys. I think that Asakura, being the younger fighter, having a lot of strength, bigger fighter too, he just has that chance, given that he's just been more active, he's younger, of landing a big shot, I think. I could see him getting a KO or maybe a decision. Likely a KO. Now, it's actually not likely a KO. Tim Elliott has never been knocked out in the UFC. He's been knocked out once in his whole career on the regional scene, I think. Never in the UFC. So that's a big deal. To be honest, guys, I don't particularly know what's going to happen, but that's why I'm a 2 out of 5 confidence, but I did pick Asakura. Fight number 9 on the card, we've got Jared Cannonier versus Michael Venom Page. It is crazy to see these guys being 41-38 still at the top level here. Jared Cannonier, coming out of MMA Lab, Phoenix, represent. I fucking love Killa Gorilla. Let's go, Jared. 41 years old, 5'11", 77.5-inch reach. That is a significantly long reach for 5'11", guys. That means he's only 71 inches tall, so he's got a 6.5-inch reach on top of his height. 18-8 record, 11-8 in the UFC. Michael Page, 38 years old, 6'3", 79-inch reach, 23-3 record, 2-1 in the UFC. Styles for this fight: very strong power and boxing from the Jared Cannonier side of things. 56% of his wins by KO. One of the only fighters outside of Conor McGregor, it's only him and Conor McGregor, who have knockouts in 3 different weight classes. Those weight classes for Cannonier are heavyweight, light heavyweight, and middleweight. Weaknesses is that in his recent fights, guys, Jared Cannonier's chin has been very suspect. I think he's been clipped by shots that would have done nothing to him a decade ago, but now are knocking him to the ground and almost KOing him. Another weakness I called out, now this happened years ago, but Jared Cannonier struggled immensely to get on the inside against Adesanya, okay? And that is something I call out as a very big red flag type weakness here, because when we look at the side of Michael Venom Page, extremely elusive footwork, kickboxing, karate type style. He is a wonder boy with darker skin, in my opinion, like the very skilled striker, super elusive, just like athletic, like very, very good fighter. Just overall, 52% of his wins are by KO. Weaknesses for Michael Venom Page. A big weakness for Michael Venom Page is when his head movement isn't on point, guys, and he gets caught, his chin is very susceptible to being KO'd. Like, he got KO'd by, I think he got, leg kicked, and the guy that threw the leg kick just fucking uppercutted him while he was on the ground, and it knocked him out cold. I would say he's also not a good wrestler. We saw that against Ian Gary. Momentum check. Jared Cannonier's coming off of a win, a statement win, when he fucking beat RoboCop in that last performance. It was fantastic. I was screaming for him. He last fought on February 15th. He got that win over RoboCop, but lost to Brahalio before that. He lost to Imavov before that, and then he went over Vettori before that. He even got hurt by Vettori on the feet, guys. Michael Venom Page last fought on February 1st, 2025, where he beat the Pirate who goes to everybody's shores. Only if you're on Abu Dhabi, though, because that's the only place he goes. Anyways, a loss to Ian Gary before that, a win over Kevin Holland, and a win over Yamauchi before that. Neither one of these guys is the home fighter. Pressure is going to be on the side, I think, of both men, especially on the side of Jared Cannonier, given that he is a currently top 10 ranked middleweight in UFC division. And I think he is going to need to get a win here because he's going to want to hold his spot in the rankings and not offer that up to Michael Venom Page. Michael Venom Page on the other side, not as much pressure, but it is a bit of pressure because if he is going to want to make a continuous run here at 85, he's going to need a win. Try to get in the rankings or higher part of the rankings against Cannonier. And guys, in this fight, this is a hard one for me because I feel like it could go two different ways. I did pick Page really off the fact that Cannonier had a lot of issues getting in range against Adesanya, and I think that the speed of Michael Venom Page is going to pose a lot of problems for Jared Cannonier. I don't really see Page knocking Cannonier out, although it could happen. I do see him like tagging Cannonier and hurting him, and then keeping Cannonier guessing on that front. And I don't think Cannonier is going to run into a situation like he did in his last fight where, his opponent gassed out. I think Page is the type to be there the entire time, poking and prodding at range, blitzing in, landing at will, getting out of range, right? And that is going to be a big problem for Cannonier if he's not able to nullify the distance and dynamic movement that Michael Venom Page brings to this fight. Ultimately, I see it going in a decision on the side of Michael Venom Page. 3 out of 5 confidence. All right, we got fight number 10 of the card. Carlos Prates versus Geoff Hands of Steel Neal. 31 years old, turning 32 in August. Actually turns 32 the next day on the 17th of August. So this is a birthday type fight for Carlos Prates. 6'1", 78-inch reach, 21-7, 4-1 in the UFC. 34 for Geoff Neal, 5'11", 75-inch reach, 16-6 with an 8-4 record in the UFC. Styles for this fight. So obviously both men, very fun styles in the UFC welterweight division. Carlos Prates is a very versatile, dynamic, and dangerous striker. 76% of his wins by KO. Also has very great takedown defense. We saw that against Ian Gary. Not that he has to worry about that really against Geoff Neal. Weaknesses for Carlos Prates. He took a lot of damage in his last fight, guys. Like, even though he wasn't super rocked on the feet really, I think where you have to consider the damage, and this is actually something I want to give Ian Gary credit for, Ian Gary was landing some of the hardest kicks I've seen right on the arms of Carlos Prates the entire time. So that is something that you have to consider. That type of damage could do things, right? I don't think it's going to really affect him in this fight, but still took a lot of damage and still did get tagged a few times on the feet. I'm not sure how Prates does against southpaws, to be honest with you guys. So not necessarily a weakness, but more of a call out here. Just not sure how he does against that southpaw style that Geoff Neal is going to come in there with. Now, Geoff Neal, on the other hand, Hands of Steel Neal. Great boxing, especially from southpaw, from Geoff Neal. Like, this guy boxed the ears off Belal Muhammad, beat the fuck out of Belal Muhammad, beat the fuck out of Vicente Luque, got the first KO finish over Vicente, and doesn't get enough credit for potentially being the guy that changed the course of Vicente Luque's entire career. Like, after Luque got his ass whooped by Hands of Steel Neal, he's never been the same. Guys, I don't know if that's a 4 or a 6, but I think it's a 4. 47% of his wins are by KO on the side of Geoff Neal. Could be a 6, though. Now, weaknesses for Geoff Neal. He's lost to those taller, rangy strikers like Ian Gary in the past because he just lets them win by, getting their strikes off on the outside and skirting out. And that could be a way that Prates wins this fight, although Prates is more of a forward movement, forward advancing type fighter. Momentum check. So, Prates coming off a loss to Ian Gary. He last fought on 4/26/2025. Before that, he had a win over Magny and a win over Jin Liang and then a win over Charles Chuck Buffalo Radke. And on the other side, Geoff Neal has a win coming off that win over Rafael Dos Anjos on 10/26/24. lost to Ian Gary before that, lost to Shavkat before that, brutalized Luque before that. Taking a look at the pressure or intangibles and X factors. So neither one of these guys is a home fighter. Prates will want to bounce back win, guys. He just lost in the UFC. He was that guy beforehand. First guy on the Fighting Nerds to chalk up a loss in the UFC, I believe. So he's definitely got a lot of pressure to get back out there and get a win. This fight's been rebooked a few times too. So definitely he's going to want to get a win here to keep climbing up those ranks. Geoff Neal, on the other hand, he does have some pressure, but this fight's been rebooked a few times. I think he just needs to get a win here so he can maintain his spot in the rankings. Ultimately, guys, I went with Prates solely off the fact that I think Geoff Neal has a tendency to not put on that type of like clinical performance when he's up against a guy who poses a threat. So like Ian Gary posed that threat against him, and I think Prates will as well. Vicente Luque, I think in that fight, Luque technically, 5 years ago maybe would have gave him way more problems, but in that fight particularly, Geoff Neal just took what he could, what Vicente could throw at him, and then just realized like, dude, I'm gonna beat you at your own game. I just think that I can easily see I could see both ways. Like I could see Neal winning somehow, like landing heavy shots, maybe even KOing Carlos. But I more so see Prates being the crisper striker and hitting him at range, especially given that he's got a reach advantage by 3 inches. I feel like it's either a decision or KO on the side of Prates, 3 out of 5 confidence. Fight number 11 on the card. This is a banger of the matchup, guys. Hopefully Lerone Murphy goes out there and bangs it out like he should. Aaron Pico versus Lerone Murphy. Aaron Pico, 29 years old, 5'8", 71-inch reach, 13-4, 0-0 in the UFC. He's like the Bellator phenom, right? We've all played this game back and forth, right? We all pick Patchy Mix. Patchy Mix gets brutalized. So don't know how to feel. But I do feel like, guys, Lerone Murphy, I feel like Lerone Murphy was like in a promo video would say like, and his name's Aaron Pico, but I'm telling Pico the guy. I feel like Lerone Murphy would also say, he would say some shit like, to the victor all the spoils. Like he says like fucking weird ass British, like it's not even a British saying, but like the way he would say it, like to the victor all the spoils. Lerone Murphy's 34 years old, 5'9", 73.5-inch reach, 16-0, 8-0 in the UFC. Styles for this fight, guys. So obviously Pico has had like 18,000 promo videos. Everyone talks about how great he is. I would like to say I think he is a very fun fighter, and he's got crazy knockout finishes. 69% of his wins by KO. Also, like extremely talented American grappling. Weaknesses, though, he's chinny. Like he has lost 3 times by knockout or finish. One of them was a shoulder injury, but 2 were he got flatline KO'd. Now, in both those fights, I think he was winning too. Like he was actually hurting his opponent, but then he got caught. The issue, guys, and you're going to see it on the next slide, is it's against guys that like are fucking low level. Like, I'm just being straight up. Like, they're just low level. Lerone Murphy, on the other hand, is very great at striking. Like, one of the most elusive kickboxing styles. Very similar. Like, he is Leon Edwards 2.0. To the victor all the spoils. 44% of wins by KO. Weaknesses for him is he has a tendency to move on the outside, which makes for some boring fights and also, like, a lot closer decisions than maybe he would like, in my opinion. The momentum check. So he goes on a 3-fight win streak over a few cans here and there. He last fought on February 24, 2024. Not really any fault of his. I think he was iced out by PFL and then finally got his signing to the UFC. And then even then, like a few fights of his got pushed back. So not really his fault, but a win over Corrales, a win over Cavalho, a win over Gonzalez, a loss to Kennedy. Now looking at Lerone Murphy. 16-fight win streak. 4-5-25 is when he last fought, so a lot more active. He has a win over Josh Emmett, a win over Dan Ige, which I don't really think he won, but a win over Barbose, and then a win over Culibao before that. Intangibles and X factors. So neither one of these guys is the home fighter, but dude, Pico has a shit ton of pressure here. When you consider the fact that Pitbull had an abysmal debut in the UFC, Patchy Mix, abysmal debut in the UFC. Pico is the last Bellator fighter of this year, of 2025, who could potentially break the curse of the debutant losing in the UFC. Now, I know Michael Venom Page already did that, but I'm talking about in 2025, right? In 2025, we've had every Bellator PFL guy lose in their debut, if I'm not mistaken. So the question here is, can Pico be that guy? Or will Lerone Murphy turn Aaron Pico into Pico de Gallo? We shall see. A red flag for me, guys, is Pico has the mountaintop of hype right now. He's never fought anybody close to the level of Murphy. If you just go through, and actually, guys, Lucas Tracy, I watched his picks video. He went through the record of Aaron Pico, which you can do as well. The guys he's lost to are not that good. And I've already done that myself. I've already done that research, watched those videos. And, I give him credit because when he was actually KO'd by Corrales the first time, Pico he was about to KO Corrales. The Corrales caught him and KO'd him. So, I don't fault him for that. But I just don't think that Pico's going to be ready for the striking style of Murphy, especially on a short notice matchup. But some pressure here, guys, because Lerone Murphy is he is one great performance from getting a title shot. So a loss here could be detrimental as fuck to him. And he's an undefeated fighter. So there's a lot of pressure and a lot of things on the line here in this matchup. And also a red flag for Lerone Murphy. He's traveling across the pond to get there for to be the victor for all the spoils. I'm picking Lerone Murphy. I think Lerone Murphy, guys, is going to win this fight solely off of, I just have not been sold on 2025 being the year for FL/Bellator debutants. I think that Murphy is going to just skate the outside, land shots at will, and just be the cleaner, clinical striker on the feet. I think he wins by decision, 3 out of 4 confidence. And the tail of the tape for the main event of the evening. Ladies and gentlemen, the moment you have all been waiting for. Dricus du Plessis versus Chimaev. This is a fight of a generation here. Feed the world. 31 years old for Dricus. 6'1", 76-inch reach. 23-2 with a 9-0 record in the UFC. Khamzat Chimaev, grappling ace. 31 years old, 6'2", 75-inch reach. 14-0 record, 8-0 in the UFC. The styles for this fight, guys. This is a crazy matchup, all right? So, Dricus, extremely effective style, okay? I am sick and tired of the fucking hate and it's ugly. No, it's effective. He's awkward and it's effective. And no one knows how to fucking go against it, guys. No one's figured it out. Now, he's a threat on the ground and on the feet. 48% of his wins by submission. And if you saw Dricus fight in the UFC only, you wouldn't realize this guy's a true submission threat based on his performances because he gets a lot of finishes by hurting his opponents on the feet. 39% of his wins by KO. Weaknesses is that he just he did seem to gas out a bit, guys, against Adesanya. I don't know if he got his nose fixed after that fight. It might have been. But he did seem tired against Adesanya. But he just finds a second wind. And then another weakness that I'm calling it out as a weakness, but it's more so just a note. Because as it says here, I'm just unsure of his ability to grapple with someone who has the level of wrestling and chain wrestling that Khamzat brings to the table. Now, looking at Khamzat, strengths for him is he is probably one of the best grapplers in the UFC, not just UFC currently, but history of UFC. Such a dominant grappler and a great finisher on the ground. Has powerful hands too and good striking. 43% of his wins are by KO and 43% of his wins are by submission. Now, while that's a lot higher when you mix the two, he's got a better 43 and 43, he does only have 14 fights, whereas Dricus has several more. But weaknesses I have against Khamzat, and this is more of a note. I know he's training with Sam Calavita, who's got the fucking garage of hell and looks like Woody Harrelson, but we haven't seen him go 5 rounds, guys. And that is the same thing that Tom Aspinall gets shit for. That's not his fault particularly, right? But we just don't know, when you're going up against a guy like Dricus who doesn't get finished, hasn't even lost in the UFC, it's hard for me to look at it and be like, you're going to finish him, because I haven't seen it happen yet. So we're playing a game of unknowns. The momentum check. So both these guys have a fuck ton of momentum. Dricus, 11 fight win streak. Not only that, 3 consecutive title wins. A win to grab the title, 2 defenses now. 2-8-25 is when he last fought, where he beat the fuck out of Sean Strickland. Before that, he beats Adesanya. Before that, he beats Strickland, which is a very close fight. And then before that, he beats Whitaker. Now, Khamzat, 14 fight win streak. He last fought on October 26, 2024. He got a win over Whitaker, a win over Usman, a win over Holland, a win over Burns. So very good talent, but not the big difference here is only one of those guys is a middleweight. And he's going up against a guy in Dricus who's a middleweight that probably is walking around at heavyweight. Intangibles and X factors. Neither one of these guys is the home fighter, but the pressure is immense for both men. Dricus has so much pressure because, guys, if he wins this fight, it's a legacy-defining moment for him as champion. If he goes out there and dispatches of Khamzat and gives Khamzat his first loss of his mixed martial arts career, that might etch Dricus in the Mount Rushmore of middleweights. That alone, like from a title defense standpoint, could be one of the most monumental title defenses of all time. So huge pressure. Red flag is he just hasn't fought someone that has the grappling ability of Khamzat. Now, Khamzat, so much pressure, guys. Undefeated. He's walking in here with an undefeated win streak of 14-0 and putting it all on the line. Could potentially walk away without the donut, if you know what I'm saying. Red flag. He hasn't gone 5 rounds in the UFC, and that's a red flag. It's always going to be until we see otherwise, right? Ultimately, guys, I was back and forth on this so much, but I have to go Dricus du Plessis, guys. I'm picking Dricus, and I had a very hard time with this, and I want everyone to know, especially Khamzat fans, I really see this fight going either way. And the reason, like I say all the time, why this fight is so massive is none of us truly know what will happen on the night of. Like, we can all fucking play games about what we think will happen. We really don't know what's going to happen. But we got to find out Saturday night, baby. We got to find out Saturday night. I get 16, baby. I think Dricus gets the win, guys. I think that Dricus has not been finished in the UFC, and I think it's not going to be a cakewalk for Khamzat to do so. But like I said, this is my opinion based off of previous history, but it's not always indicative of what really will happen, right? So it could be that Khamzat smokes him. We'll see what happens. I think Dricus is too much. I think he's too much. He can mix it up too much. And although Khamzat's been doing Aerodyne bikes and sweating his ass off with Sam Calavita, I also don't know like if that cardio always translates, because there's things that you're not factoring in there, like a walkout at United Center with the pressure on, the fans. Dricus has been there, done that, has already had defenses in huge arenas, sold out events. The fight against Adesanya was massive. So Dricus has been there, done that, and I think that pressure is going to be on the side of Khamzat here. We just don't know how he'll handle that. I think Dricus can get this one done by decision, 2 out of 5 confidence. Guys, those are my picks for UFC 319. If you enjoyed this video, please make sure to give it a like. Comment below. Who are you guys picking in this matchup? I would love to hear from all of you on your picks for all of these fights if you'd like. And per usual, stay on top of all the content. Subscribe to Fite Feed, because if you aren't subscribed to Fite Feed, fuck you. Outside of that, I hope you guys are excited for this one. I will be doing another installment of picks with my beautiful girlfriend, Marissa. She will be doing her own picks for UFC 319 because I'm going to be doing pay-per-view cards. We'll be doing a joint thing where we do that. So yeah, that's what's happening, guys. Be on the lookout for that this week. I'll be posting a lot more content too. Going to do some breakdowns about Khamzat and Dricus. I hope you guys enjoy, and I will see you all in the next one.